You're listening to the FM Podcast.
All right, welcome back to the FM Podcast, episode number 8, with me, your host, Brian Neff. Today we're going to talk about the haters, but not in the usual sense of haters, like the guy you know at the gym who sips the haterade in his jelly of your juicy biceps and sexy ass. No. Today we're talking about the crabs in a bucket mentality, and specifically as it refers to those people who try to tear down a standard rather than try to meet that standard. So, crabs in a bucket. Maybe you've heard it before, maybe you haven't. But what do we mean by crabs in a bucket? Well, if you look at crab fishermen or anybody who gets crabs, you can put all of your crabs in the same bucket with no lid, because none of them are going to get out. And what happens is you'll have a crab, and he'll start climbing towards the top. As he starts kind of climbing on the other crabs, trying to get out of them, inevitably, all the other crabs will pull him back down. He's about to get out, and just all the other crabs will just pull him down. And usually, that phrase is used in the sense of people who are trying to better themselves, and they have their friends or significant others or people in their lives, or whoever. It doesn't have to be anybody important, but you could tell somebody, hey man, I'm working on this goal. I want to lose 50 pounds. And their response, instead of being something possible, hey man, that's awesome. That's really good for you. I wish I could do that. They would be like, why would you want to do that? That sounds really hard. You should probably just quit. That means you don't get to eat whatever you want, or that means you can't go to the bar with me anymore, and you're a bad friend because that means that you don't want to go out on Friday dinners, or you don't eat Sundays after church with the family. That kind of mentality of cutting somebody down is usually what people mean by crabs in a bucket. So, how are we going to be using it today, or what are we referring to today? We're talking about technically a group of people, more of a mentality of a group of people that don't want to do the work, so they try to discredit the goal that you have. They don't, instead they're okay with the status quo, and anything that they see somebody trying to buck the status quo or be better or whatever makes them feel bad. It causes that cognitive dissonance. They don't want that person to be better than them. So instead of, again, trying to support somebody who is actively trying to better themselves, they try to cut them down by telling them that their goals are stupid, or that they are pointless, or why would you want to do that, So, and specifically in our context, what are we working on? We're working on trying to be better people. And what is that? That's skill sets. Skill sets are what make us better people. And skill sets are not innate, right? Nobody is born with skill sets, right? They require development, and development requires hard work and commitment, right? Like, nobody is born coming out of the womb good at basketball, or good at soccer, or good at reading or debating, anything like that. Those are skill sets that require development. Yes, there are characteristics that might make skill sets easier. Those can be innate, or somebody more likely to be good at a skill set. Like, let's say if you're born tall, you're going to have a characteristic that makes you better at basketball, but doesn't make you good at basketball. But the skill sets themselves are not innate. So, when we start talking about the goals that we have with the FM podcast, what are our goals? Our main goal is forging a more capable citizenry. And what does that look like? That's several different skill sets. There's survival and preparedness. There's self-defense. There's shooting. There's physical fitness. There's philosophy. There's politics, professional development. And while this podcast is not necessarily specifically for men, obviously my perspective is that of a male, right? And from a manly perspective. And so I'm going to touch on the topic of masculinity, that idea of protecting, providing, presiding. Essentially what we're trying to do here with the FM podcast is work on constantly improving on those things that matter, those things that serve us and that serve others. And all of these skill sets that I just mentioned require time, effort, and commitment to develop. They aren't like video games that you can just, play overnight and get the hang of it and be able to play, and be competent after, a weekend of binge playing some video game. Like, that's not what this is. They require constant repetitions for years. And you have to be willing to commit to that daily grind. And what I'm tired of is seeing these essential skill sets being devalued and just completely ignored. I'm tired of going to the health food store and being in line behind some panty-waist dude with his wife and his kids, knowing that, I'm not saying I would do this, but I'm just saying, like, a person could go and rape that guy's wife and kill that guy's kids, and there's nothing that guy could do to stop him. And the way I see it is that guy has a responsibility to his family, to put an end to that, or at least attempt to put an end to it. That guy is, again, we're talking about a stereotypical guy, you know what I mean? But this guy in my head that I constantly see, that I think of, is just as likely to run away, and not protect his family as he is to fight at all. And even if he was, he wouldn't have the tools and the skills required to be successful in that effort. Unfortunately, I guess fortunately, we live in a time where a person can go through their whole lives without having any of these aforementioned skill sets, right? Like, we're not fighting off lions, we're not having to we don't live in the Wild West where high noon at the bar happens, that's not the time we live in. But just because you can get through life without having any of these skill sets doesn't mean that you should. And I honestly, I can't really think of an example of someone who lacks all of these, again, aforementioned skills that we just talked about without being a person who's a parasite who relies on the work of others to survive. And that's not who we should be. We should always be striving to be contributors, not just lazy, good-for-nothing moochers. So there are common, like, how do the crabs, these crab people, how do they attack our goals and our ideas? Like, what are the things that they say, right, when it comes to the things that we're doing to actively improve ourselves in these areas that we're talking about? So, for example, talk about survival preparedness. Somebody might say, why do you need a garden when there's a grocery store? Why do you hunt when the grocery store has meat? Why do you have a flashlight? Why do you have a flashlight in your pocket when you could just use your phone? Like, why would you stock up on food? Why would you have a pantry? Why would you have a couple months stores of food when the grocery store always has food? Well, what have we just seen over the past 10-ish months, right? All that stuff isn't exactly there all the time. There are going to be times where, if you're going to the store every single day and you don't have supplies, there might come a time where you don't have food because there's no food at the grocery store and you didn't have the forethought and the self-control and the idea of self-reliancy to stock up that pantry for a few days, Here's self-defense. What would they say? Why do you learn to fight? We live in a civilized society. Well, yeah, we do for the most part, we live in a civilized society, but what happens, when that guy, who isn't civilized, right? What are you going to do when that guy shows his face, right? You're going to be like, we live in a civilized society, man. We're not going to fight. Well, that guy might have other ideas and it might not be up to you, What else? You don't have to fight anyone. Just walk away. Well, ideally, right? I would walk away. I don't want to fight anybody. It's for those times where walking away is no longer an option, right? When you're backed into that corner where the only option is lose your life or, have somebody get seriously hurt or injured that you're responsible for, or fight. Those very realistically could become your reality, right? And you have no control over when that happens. We rarely get called on a time of our choosing, right? So it's our duty to be prepared at all times. Let's see. I carry a gun. I don't need self-defense training. Oh yeah, dipshit? Like, what are you going to do if it's a non-lethal situation? Some guy smacks your lady's ass and then, is putting his hands on her. That's not grounds for deadly force. Now you can't use your only option that you've left for yourself. You had one option, lethal force, and you have nothing in between that, okay? Very real, it's much more likely that something is going to go, an altercation will go physical before it goes lethal. So if you've left your only option as lethal, well, guess what? You're fucking up shit creek when the lethal option is out of bounds. Okay? So here's my favorite one. I'm insert douchey bro face here, like I'm huge, I'm too strong, I see red, I don't need training, blah 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 blah. Dude, go fuck yourself. You're a fucking idiot. Like, and we're not even gonna address that one, right? Like, if you're that stupid and that self-deluded that you just think because you're 220 pounds, right, and that you can bench press your body weight, like that you are somehow, capable of fighting, maybe against somebody else who's not good at fighting, but against anybody who's been in a fight, like, I don't know. You never know. Again, don't rely on that stuff. That stuff is stupid. So, let's see. What's next? Shooting. No one should have guns. Well, no one should have guns. Maybe you should go to a different country, right? Like, we don't need people like you here. No one should have guns, right? It's funny. We had Donald Cerrone that put out a video, some vlog video about his top 5 favorite firearms or something like that for self-defense. We're going to address, well, I guess we did address that in the training video. But, he has this point, like, no one should have this AR-15. I believe in Second Amendment, but no one should have this AR-15. Bro, obviously you don't understand. Either you disagree with it or you don't understand it. You're not pro 2A if you don't think that people should have AR-15s or guns. You know what I mean? Either you disagree with it or you don't understand it, right? Because saying that you agree with it and that you shouldn't have guns or whatever, you can't say both. Let's see. I don't need a gun. That's what the cops are for. Oh yeah? What have we seen? I've been saying it for a long time, right? Like, what's the average response? If I call the cops, right, because somebody just broke into my door, it's going to be 12 minutes. 12 minutes is a long fucking time to fight for your life, right? Like, and now we're starting to see where the cops aren't even responding to these calls, right? Places in LA, places in Portland were getting so bad with these riots and all that stuff that the cops weren't even going to these calls. So it was on you to fend for yourself, defend yourself, right? So that's not a good argument either. Physical fitness. Why do you need to be strong? You just work at a desk. Well, I'm not always going to be working at work, If you can't, haul some, something into your truck, if you can't take stuff to the dump, those are just basic things, right? If you need someone to help you load simple stuff, you know what I mean? Like, you're already failing. You're behind. Strength is a skill, and strength is a necessary skill. Let's see, what else? Not everyone likes lifting weights. Not everybody has to lift weights. Nobody's saying that your physical fitness is limited to lifting weights. If you like doing, cardio, cool. You know what I mean? If you like swing some kettlebells around, nobody says you have to be over here squatting. It's more about getting your body moving. It's more about, creating that healthy lifestyle. That's what that's about. Nobody's limiting you to going and being a bro gym lifter, right? Do martial arts, do CrossFit, do whatever you like. Do rock climbing, you're not limited to one thing, right? So let's see. Not everyone is athletic. Not everyone's born athletic. Well, nobody's saying you have to be athletic, right? It's just the idea that you are bettering yourself and maintaining a certain level of physical fitness so you're able to do shit, right? Like, nobody wants, and again, this is just a basic level. Nobody wants to be winded after playing with their kids, right? If you can't pick your kids up without injuring yourself, you need to fix yourself. Let's see. So masculinity, and again, this is the one we mentioned, specific to me, but not specific to this podcast. We want to be open to women and all that stuff too. But again, egocentric. So being a man is just being a good person. You don't need to work on these skill sets. No, it's not just being a good person. Does being a good person get you a job? No. I mean, it helps you get a job. It's probably one of the things that would help you get a job on top of some other skills. But like, does me being a good person make me the CEO of a company? Does it give me the skill set to be, a top salesperson? No, it does not. Let's see, what else? Oh, they don't like the alpha male, this idea of toxic masculinity. Those people are these people, on that whole topic, right? Just real quick, get on a little soapbox. Alpha male, toxic masculinity. These terms are said by dopey people who aren't masculine, right? They're these people, these people that talk about alpha males and all that stuff are the people who aren't alpha, who try to be alpha. These people that don't want to put on the work but still want to get the credit, right? If you're over here being rude, if you're over here being a douchebag, if you're being disrespectful to women, if you're starting fights, if you're doing that stuff, that's not masculinity. That's a little manlet trying to act manly. That's what that is, right? That is not masculinity. And it's these people that refuse to do the work that are going to be the exhibit A for this alpha male mentality, toxic masculinity bullshit. If you look, I've trained with a lot of different special operations people. I've trained with UFC fighters, right? None of these people exhibit any of these alpha male toxic masculinity traits. Do you know why? Because they're capable and they don't have to, right? If you're out here saying, what's that scene in Game of Thrones with Joffrey where they're all at the table and Tyrion disrespects Joffrey, the little kid king, and he's like, I'm the king and you can't talk to me like that. And then his uncle and Tyrion's dad, Tywin, tells Joffrey, he's like, hey, any man who has to say that he's the king is no king. So if you're out here having to tell people that you're a man, guess what? You're not a fucking man, okay? People should just be able to tell by interacting with you that you embody masculinity. Okay, so about Kosovo, let's go back to philosophy, politics. I don't pay attention to politics. I can't do anything about it. Oh no, you don't vote. If you're not voting, then I guess not. But again, this idea that you can't do anything about it, you can vote and you can be the change that you want to see. We talked about that in Fix Yourself. I think it was episode 4. We talked about that. You can be the change. You can be that influence, right? So this idea of just being like, well, I can't do anything about it, so I don't really care, okay, doesn't fly. Professional development. I don't get fulfillment from my job. Well, not everybody is going to get 100% fulfillment from their job. That doesn't mean that you don't have to be a master of your craft, right? If you give a shit about, making more money, right, or getting somewhere, or not being stuck in your shitty situation anymore, getting a better job, professional development, right? Put the time in to get better. Become a master of your craft. What else? I just do it to make money. Well, you're going to be miserable. While you're there, you might as well put in the effort it requires to be good at it. And again, you will build those skills, and eventually you probably will enjoy it a little bit more. But again, another soapbox, people spend too much time worrying about finding a job that they like rather than building the skills to get to a place that they find satisfactory, right? Spending all this time looking for your dream job, you're never going to get that. Because guess what? Work is going to suck. It's going to suck. Work is not fun. That's why they call it work and not fun. So this idea of, I just got to find the right job for me or blah, 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 blah. Get the fuck out of here. Nobody got time for that shit. So anyway, these are all common examples of ways people try to undermine your goals. Oh, wait. Side note, almost forgot. Now, let's go back. All these excuses, all these little counter arguments, air quotes, arguments against you're trying to cut down or devalue, your goals of being a better person, a more capable person, right? They are all predicated on things going right? Yeah, you don't need to stock up if the grocery store is always stocked. Right? You don't need to go hunting if the grocery store always has meat. You don't need a flashlight if your phone always works. You don't need to learn how to fight if, you're never going to get in a physical altercation, right? All of those attitudes are predicated on things going right. And luckily, we live in a time where most of those things go right most of the time. But if you choose to base your life around those things around those things going right, you're going to be fucked the second something goes wrong. And again, it goes back to, right, we live in a unique time where not having these skill sets is not necessarily a prerequisite to make it through life, right? That goes back to that. But unfortunately, I think we're kind of on the precipice of, this way of life that we know it, not necessarily making a big change where you're going to have to start developing some of these skills and pretty damn quick. PDQ, pretty damn quick. right? Because, depending on what happens in the next year, if we go into lockdown, if we do this stuff where we demo our economy, you can look for more of the same of 2020, but worse in 2021. Okay? So again, you can't base all of these arguments and you can't base your life around the ideals and not have any contingencies. So, soapboxer, go back to what I was saying. Anyway, all these examples that we just talked about, all these counter arguments, right, are just common ways people try to undermine your goals by making them seem irrelevant. But they aren't irrelevant. That person is just a lazy fucking loser who would rather take the easy route by cutting you down than to do what needs to be done. So don't let them get in your head. Don't let them discourage you from doing what you know needs to be done, that you know in your heart is right, right? Obviously, if you're listening, or if you're still listening, if this is the first time, welcome to the crash course and what we're about. But stay the course. Stay the course. So I think that's about all I got to say about that. So we're just going to have a couple closing thoughts. One, first, be realistic. Another common straw man argument against this way of thinking and the way that we like to conduct ourselves through our lives is this idea of the unattainable unattainable ideal. And it's funny, I just had this conversation with a person not too long ago. Basically saying like, well, not everyone's like you. Not everyone's born like you. Not everyone's born like that. Not everyone has those goals. Not everybody can be that good at this thing, And to that I say, no one is saying that you have to be John Wick. No one is saying you have to be Les Stroud. Nobody's saying you have to be a world champion UFC fighter. No one is saying you have to be some wealthy CEO. Nobody is saying that you have to look like The Rock. What's important is making legitimate attempts at bettering yourself in the areas that we talked about each single day. That's what's important. Nobody's talking about this end goal. Nobody's talking about this unattainable idea. Because guess what? The Rock takes fucking steroids. Newsflash, nobody's going to look like that dude. That guy is a genetic fucking freak. And on top of that, he's taking gear out the ass. Nobody's going to look like that fucking dude. Nobody. Right? Unless you're the fucking Rock. So it's good. You can get motivation from him. And you should strive to, be better. And if he's somebody that motivates you and you look up to, like, by all means, right? But saying I will never achieve what The Rock has achieved is a cop-out, right? Well, I might as well not try at all because I'll never look like The Rock. It's not how it works, right? It's about you are your only competition. It's about being better each day than you were before, right? Not trying to be better than The Rock, not trying to be The Rock, not trying to be somebody else, right? That's what it's about. And second, this is for you crabs out there. This is for the crabs. You are welcome to maintain that crab attitude. If you're happy with who you are and you don't want to put in any effort, that's fine. That's your prerogative. But realize if you aren't going to attempt or if you aren't going to accept responsibility, you shouldn't be entitled to the privileges that come along with accepting those responsibilities. So what does that mean? Well, guess what? If you don't want to educate yourself on current events and politics, don't vote. You're fucking us all when you are uneducated and you vote, okay? Stop voting. If you don't want to get educated, you don't want to pay attention, if you want to get your fucking news from memes on Facebook, go fuck yourself, but don't fucking go vote. Don't do that, okay? Because you're boning the rest of us. Let's see. If you don't want to step up to the plate and do the things required to protect, provide, preside over a family, you have no business starting one. If you want to sit at home all day collecting government checks and playing video games all day while getting high, that's fine. But fuck you if you think that you deserve to be in the dating pool and don't even consider bringing children into this world, okay? If that's what you want to do, you stay in your little world. Don't start. Those things are earned. I know people think that they're entitled to them. I know people these days think that they're entitled to everything, but they're not. Okay, those are responsibilities, and those privileges come with accepting those responsibilities, okay? You don't just get a free pass, right? You don't get to not work all day and then collect a paycheck. It's not how it works, okay? If you don't want to work, you're not going to collect a paycheck. So you want to be a little crab, you want to do that bullshit, fine. But fuck off. Leave us alone. Don't be making a mess, and don't be trying to undermine what people like me are trying to do. So, I think that covered my little tirade on this episode. So we'll just close it out. So, stay safe out there. Go do something hard. And watch out for the crazies. We'll catch you in the next one.
You're listening to the FM Podcast.